The history of Christian heresies is a vast and complex subject that spans nearly 2 millennia. Heresies are beliefs or practices that deviate from established doctrines, and in Christianity, they have played a significant role in shaping the faith and its institutions. This comprehensive account will delve into the major heresies that have emerged from the early church to the modern era, exploring their origins, key figures, theological contentions, and the responses of the Orthodox Christian community. Early Christian heresies. 1. Gnosticism. Gnosticism is one of the earliest heresies, emerging in the 1st and 2nd centuries. It was a diverse and widespread movement characterized by the belief in esoteric knowledge, gnosis, as the path to salvation. Gnostics viewed the material world as inherently evil, created by a lesser deity, the demiurge, rather than the true, benevolent God. Prominent Gnostic groups included the Valentinians, named after the influential teacher Valentinus, and the followers of Basilides and Marcion. Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Judas, provided alternative narratives about Jesus and his teachings, often emphasizing a dualistic worldview. The early Church Fathers, including Irenaeus, Tertullian, and Hippolytus, vigorously opposed Gnosticism, arguing that it distorted the nature of God and Christ and undermined the unity of the Church. 2. Marcionism. Marcion of Sinope, active in the mid-2nd century, founded a heretical movement that rejected the Hebrew Bible and the God of Israel. Marcion taught that the God of the Old Testament was a wrathful and inferior deity, distinct from the loving and merciful God revealed by Jesus Christ. He created a canon that excluded the Old Testament and included only a modified version of Luke's Gospel and 10 of Paul's epistles. The Church condemned Marcionism for its dualism and its rejection of the Old Testament. Marcion's canon prompted the early Church to begin formalizing the New Testament canon, emphasizing the continuity between the Old and New Testaments and the unity of God's revelation. 3. Montanism. Montanism arose in the late 2nd century in Phrygia, modern-day Turkey, founded by Montanus, who claimed to be the mouthpiece of the Holy Spirit. Montanism emphasized the imminent return of Christ and advocated for a rigorous moral lifestyle, including fasting, celibacy, and martyrdom. Montanus was joined by 2 prophetesses, Priscilla and Maximilla, who also claimed to receive direct revelations from the Holy Spirit. The movement's emphasis on new prophecy and strict asceticism challenged the emerging church hierarchy and its authority. The Orthodox Church rejected Montanism, seeing it as a threat to ecclesiastical order and doctrinal stability. Montanism was declared heretical, but it persisted for several centuries in various forms. Christological controversies. 4. Arianism. Arianism, named after Arius, a priest from Alexandria, was one of the most significant and contentious heresies in early Christianity. Arius taught that Jesus Christ was a created being, not co-eternal with the Father, thus denying the full divinity of Christ. Arius's views sparked a major theological controversy, leading to the convening of the First Council of Nicaea in 325. The Nicene Creed, formulated at the council, affirmed the consubstantiality, homoousios, of the Son with the Father, declaring that Christ is of one substance with God. Despite this, Arianism persisted, leading to further conflicts and councils. The heresy was eventually condemned at the First Council of Constantinople in 381, which reinforced Nicene orthodoxy. 5. Nestorianism. Nestorianism is associated with Nestorius, Patriarch of Constantinople in the early 5th century. Nestorius argued for a distinction between the divine and human natures of Christ, effectively promoting the idea of 2 separate persons coexisting in Jesus. This led to the rejection of the term Theotokos, God-bearer, for Mary, advocating instead for Christotokos, Christ-bearer. The controversy culminated in the Council of Ephesus in 431, which condemned Nestorianism and affirmed the unity of Christ's 2 natures in one person. The council upheld the title Theotokos for Mary. Despite this, Nestorianism continued to influence Christian communities in the East, particularly in Persia and India, where the Church of the East maintained its doctrines. 6. Monophysitism. Monophysitism, or Eutychianism, emerged in response to Nestorianism, emphasizing the single, nature, physis, of Christ. Eutychius, an archimandrite in Constantinople, argued that Christ's human nature was absorbed into his divine nature, resulting in a single, divine nature after the Incarnation. The Council of Chalcedon in 451 addressed this issue, declaring that Christ exists in 2 natures, divine and human, without confusion, change, division, or separation. This Chalcedonian definition became the Orthodox position, but it was rejected by many Eastern Christian communities, leading to the formation of the Oriental Orthodox churches, including the Coptic, Armenian, and Syriac churches. Medieval heresies. 7. Donatism. Donatism was a schismatic movement that arose in North Africa in the early 4th century. Named after Donatus Magnus, the Donatists insisted on the purity of the Church and its ministers. They argued that the validity of the sacraments depended on the moral character of the clergy administering them, rejecting sacraments performed by clergy who had lapsed during persecution. St. Augustine of Hippo was a prominent opponent of Donatism, arguing that the efficacy of the sacraments derives from Christ, not the moral state of the minister. The Church condemned Donatism at various councils, but the movement persisted for several centuries, highlighting tensions between the institutional Church and local Christian communities. 8. Pelagianism. Pelagianism, attributed to the British monk Pelagius, emerged in the late 4th and early 5th centuries. Pelagius taught that human beings could achieve salvation through their efforts without divine grace, emphasizing free will and moral responsibility. He denied the doctrine of original sin, arguing that Adam's sin did not taint human nature. St. Augustine vehemently opposed Pelagianism, defending the necessity of divine grace for salvation and the reality of original sin. The Church condemned Pelagianism at the councils of Carthage, 418, and Ephesus, 431, affirming the doctrine of original sin and the essential role of grace in salvation. 9. Catharism. Catharism, also known as Albigensianism, was a dualist heresy that flourished in southern France and northern Italy in the 12th and 13th centuries. Cathars believed in a dualistic cosmology, positing a good, spiritual God and an evil, material God. They rejected the Catholic Church's sacraments, hierarchy, and material wealth, advocating for a return to the pure, spiritual Church. The Church responded to Catharism with a combination of preaching, inquisition, and military action. The Albigensian Crusade, 1209–1229, aimed to eradicate the Cathar heresy, and the establishment of the medieval Inquisition sought to root out remaining heretical beliefs. Despite these efforts, Catharism left a lasting impact on medieval European religious and social structures. Reformation and post-Reformation heresies. 10. Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation of the 16th century is often seen as a reaction against perceived heresies within the Roman Catholic Church. Key figures like Martin Luther, John Calvin, and Huldrych Zwingli challenged doctrines and practices such as indulgences, papal authority, and the nature of the Eucharist. Luther's doctrine of justification by faith alone, sola fide, and his rejection of papal authority led to his excommunication and the establishment of Lutheranism. Calvin's emphasis on predestination and a theocratic model of church governance contributed to the spread of Reformed Christianity. The Reformation fractured Western Christianity, leading to the emergence of various Protestant denominations. 11. Anabaptism. Anabaptism, part of the Radical Reformation, emerged in the early 16th century. Anabaptists rejected infant baptism, advocating for believers' baptism based on personal faith. They also promoted pacifism, communal living, and the separation of church and state. Leaders like Conrad Grebel, Felix Manz, and Menno Simons were instrumental in developing Anabaptist theology. The movement faced severe persecution from both Catholic and Protestant authorities, who viewed Anabaptism as a threat to social and religious order. Despite this, Anabaptist communities survived and evolved, influencing later groups like the Mennonites, Amish, and Hutterites. 12. Socinianism. Socinianism, named after the Italian theologians Lelio and Fausto Sozzini, Socinus, emerged in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. Socinians rejected the doctrine of the Trinity, viewing God as a single person and Jesus as a divinely inspired human. They also denied original sin and predestination, emphasizing rational religion and moral living. The Socinian movement found a stronghold in Poland, where it influenced the development of the Polish Brethren and the later Unitarian movement. The Church condemned Socinianism for its anti-Trinitarian views and rationalist approach to theology. Modern heresies. 13. Deism. Deism, which gained prominence in the 17th and 18th centuries, posits that reason and observation of the natural world are sufficient to determine the existence of a creator, but it rejects revealed religion and supernatural events, miracles. Deists believe in a God who created the universe but does not intervene in human affairs. Prominent deists included figures like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and Voltaire. Deism influenced the Enlightenment and the founding principles of the United States, promoting a rational, moral, and ethical framework independent of traditional religious institutions. While not a heresy in the traditional sense, deism diverged significantly from Orthodox Christian teachings, leading to conflicts with established churches. 14. Unitarianism. Unitarianism emerged in the late 16th century but gained prominence in the 19th century, primarily in England and the United States. Unitarians reject the doctrine of the Trinity, viewing God as a single entity and Jesus as a human prophet or moral teacher. They emphasize reason, conscience, and individual interpretation of the Scriptures. Unitarianism's roots can be traced to early anti-Trinitarian movements like Socinianism, and it influenced other liberal Christian movements. Unitarian Universalism, a modern development, incorporates a broad range of spiritual and philosophical beliefs, emphasizing social justice, tolerance, and inclusivity. 15. Mormonism. Mormonism, or the Latter-day Saint movement, was founded in the early 19th century by Joseph Smith. Smith claimed to receive revelations from God, which he recorded in the Book of Mormon. Mormon theology includes distinctive beliefs such as the pre-existence of souls, ongoing revelation, and a restored priesthood authority. It also diverges from mainstream Christianity in its understanding of the Godhead, with God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit seen as separate beings united in purpose. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church, faced significant opposition and persecution in its early years, culminating in the migration of its followers to Utah. While Mormonism has grown into a global faith, it remains distinct from traditional Christian denominations, leading some to classify it as a heretical sect. 16. Jehovah's Witnesses. Founded in the late 19th century by Charles Taze Russell, Jehovah's Witnesses reject traditional Christian doctrines such as the Trinity, the immortality of the soul, and eternal torment in hell. They believe that only 144,000 anointed Christians will reign with Christ in heaven, while others will live forever on a restored earth. Their translation of the Bible, the New World Translation, reflects their unique theological perspectives. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for their rigorous evangelism, door-to-door ministry, and refusal of military service and blood transfusions. Their distinct beliefs and practices have led to legal and social conflicts, and they are often viewed as outside the bounds of mainstream Christianity. Responses to heresies. Throughout history, the Orthodox Christian community has responded to heresies through councils, creeds, and various forms of ecclesiastical authority. Key responses include ecumenical councils. The early church convened ecumenical councils to address major theological disputes and heresies. Notable councils include First Council of Nicaea, 325, addressed Arianism and affirmed the consubstantiality of the Son with the Father. First Council of Constantinople, 381, expanded on Nicene Creed, condemning Arianism and affirming the divinity of the Holy Spirit. Council of Ephesus, 431, condemned Nestorianism and affirmed Mary as Theotokos. Council of Chalcedon, 451, defined the two natures of Christ, condemning monophysitism. Church Fathers and Theologians. Early Church Fathers like Irenaeus, Tertullian, Augustine, and Athanasius played crucial roles in combating heresies through their writings and theological arguments. They provided a foundation for Orthodox Christian doctrine and helped to articulate the Church's response to divergent beliefs. Inquisition. The medieval Inquisition, established in the 12th century, aimed to identify and eliminate heresies within Christendom. It used various methods, including interrogation, trial, and punishment, to maintain doctrinal purity. The Spanish Inquisition, established in 1478, became infamous for its severity in prosecuting heretics and enforcing Catholic orthodoxy. Reformation and Counter-Reformation. The Protestant Reformation led to significant theological and institutional upheaval. The Catholic Church's response, known as the Counter-Reformation, included the Council of Trent, 1545–1563, which clarified and reaffirmed Catholic doctrines, reformed clerical practices, and strengthened ecclesiastical discipline. The history of Christian heresies is a testament to the dynamic and often contentious nature of religious belief. Heresies have challenged established doctrines, prompting theological reflection, ecclesiastical responses, and, at times, violent conflict. Despite the controversies, these heresies have contributed to the development and diversification of Christian thought, shaping the faith in profound and lasting ways. From the early Gnostics to modern movements like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses, the story of Christian heresies underscores the complexities of defining orthodoxy and maintaining religious unity. It reveals the interplay between innovation and tradition, highlighting the enduring quest for spiritual truth and the diverse expressions of Christian faith across the ages.